This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Ask the Hollywood Expert series from SMPTE Hollywood. My name's Kylie, and I'm a section manager for Hollywood. So this series has been really oriented around career advice for people that are up and coming, students, new graduates, people considering a change or trying to figure out their path. And we've been focusing a lot on jobs and paths that you may not have heard of in college, if you went to college. Editor, I think, is probably the only one we've had so far that you might have heard of before, but it's usually not one that makes you go to school. It's usually one you learn about in school. Those of us that knew what editing was beforehand are kind of fringe weirdos. We watch too much of the Oscars. So but today we're going to talk about Molly's path into editorial. So before we get to that, a little bit of housekeeping. As usual, everyone on this call is muted and should stay muted. And also, please don't turn your webcam on if you have the option. If you want to ask a question, just click on the little speech bubble and type it into the chat box. And I'm going to select questions for our conversation from that feed. I may not get to everything, but hopefully we'll get to most of it. And if you change your view at the top to active cameras or who's talking, it should give you a little bit of a better experience. All right, so on to it now. We're going to get started with our guest, Molly Schock. She's an Emmy-nominated editor, a member of the American Cinema Editors, and Motion Picture Editors Guild board member. She's going to tell us first a little bit about her backstory, and then we'll get into taking questions. And then, while you talk, I'm going to share the pictures that you shared with me.
Okay.
So I'll just kind of shift through them.
Sure.
So if you want me to move forward, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll just do it when it feels right.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Well, again, I'm Molly Schock. I've been editing for well over 20 years. I decided to get into the industry when I was in high school. And like probably a lot of you, I initially thought I wanted to get into directing because I didn't really realize there were other careers. And I was very fortunate that right when I made this decision, the adult school in my town partnered with the local cable access channel, and we put together this program called Ask a Friend, and it was where kids could call up and ask for help with homework on live television, and we both were the performers and the content creators and also ran the show. So literally my very first job in anything was directing a live 1.5-hour cable access channel. And this is a photo of me there, and the gal in the red vest with the glasses is my best friend from high school, Melody, who I'm still very good friends with. And I love that I have this picture of us. So from there, I checked out a lot of the schools, the colleges that, USC, UCLA. I looked at Pepperdine, and Loyola Marymount is where I ultimately settled because it just was a better fit for me. And one of the reasons it was a fit is that I could immediately go into the College of Communications, Television, Film Production as a freshman. I didn't have to apply after being an undergraduate for a couple of years. And while I was there, I first made the decision I was going to focus on television more than film, purely from a practical point of view, in that I was looking at my friends that were film majors, and they were spending thousands of dollars on their senior projects because film's expensive, but videotape is cheap. So I decided to focus on video for economical reasons. I figured it was the same process of, well, you write something and you cast it and you shoot it and then you put it together. Well, then I realized I hated being on the set. I didn't like having to all the spinning plates. But what I was really good at was, if you put me in a room for 12 hours with my material and then shut the door, leave me alone, order me a pizza, I could come out with a finished product. And I realized it was a combination of both really enjoying that it was a kind of an autonomous creative thing that I had a lot of power in. And also, I just didn't really have a burning story that I had to share with the world. But I was really good at finding the story, like looking at the footage and finding, oh, hey, if I cut to this reaction shot, that emotion is really going to color this whole scene differently. And I knew pretty much from the time I left college that I wanted to be an editor. It took me about a year to get my first job. It was at a company called Davis Glick Productions. And it was I got the job because I had been a waitress. One of my clients, regular clients, was this wonderful gentleman named Alan Bernard, who was a sound mixer for Star Trek The Next Generation. And he thought I was bright and knew I was interested. So he introduced me to a gentleman named Fred Chandler, who at the time was the vice president of post-production at Paramount Pictures. Now, and again, I'm meeting these people and I hear these names, but I didn't really have a context for how lucky I was to be meeting these people. So that's really one bit of advice I really have to offer any of you listening is you never really know kind of who you're talking to, and not that, you know, everybody's an important human being, of course, but you don't really know what the opportunity they can afford you. So you have to present yourself and let people you meet know what is it that you want to do. You know, I knew I wanted to get into editing, so I was lucky enough to meet a man who was in post-production that introduced me to a gentleman who was very powerful in the world of post-production. Fred, again, thought I was bright, had some focus, introduced me around to a number of, went through his literal Rolodex, this is how long ago this was, and gave me the names of some gentlemen that ran some post-production facilities around Hollywood, and I went and met with them. And it was just a matter of me kind of calling every couple months. They didn't really have a job for me right away. But after about 6 months, one of them said, hey, can you write and edit your own promos for like Family Feud and Baywatch? And I'm like, why, of course I can. Not really knowing what that was. But I went to this company, Davis Glick, and they hired me. And I started just kind of pulling clips, and because this is when everything was, this is a great picture here. This is when we did everything 3/4 deck. The top deck, you can see, is the A deck, the middle deck is the B deck, and the bottom deck is the record deck. And if you wanted to do a dissolve, you had to have 2 copies of the show and queue up your start point in the A deck, and it would then transition to the B deck, and it would record it onto the C deck, and you had to do it in the order you wanted it to air. You couldn't jump around and be nonlinear. But yeah, I learned how to write promos, and it was great training ground because I learned how to tell a story in 30 seconds. I was writing my own content. I had to direct the voiceover talent, who are still some of the top voiceover talents working today. Brian Cummings and Andy Geller, and at the time, Don LaFontaine. So it was just this great training ground microcosm of like, how do you produce something in Hollywood? I stayed at the company for about 5 years. They got ads after about the first 3 years. So that's about the time Avid came on. So I'm like, well, I'll stay on a little bit longer, even though I kind of felt like I was ready to move on. I was going to learn this new technology, and as anyone that's out there knows, that nonlinear is absolutely the way to go. If I have any regrets about my early part of my career, is that I don't think I was focused enough. Like Davis Glick was a wonderful company. I still have lifetime friends there. I got health insurance. I had paid vacation. It felt like a real job as opposed to a lot of more freelance lifestyle that most people experience nowadays. It was very easy to get comfortable there, and I didn't really keep asking myself, well, what kind of projects do I want to work on? What do I want to do? And that is something that everybody really should be asking themselves. What projects do you want to work on? And once you kind of get the answer to some of those questions, look for the end credits at the end of a show that you're watching and that you like, and go, okay, what's Renegade 83? What's 51 Minds? What's A. Smith Company? These are the companies that are producing the kind of shows I want to work on. Maybe I should go see if I can get an entry-level job there, whether it's security guard, production assistant, answering phones. At least gets you in the door, and again, you just have more exposure to the kind of potential jobs that you can then be moving towards. So that's one bit of advice I would really give everybody. So after I was at Davis Glick for about 5 years, I decided to go freelance. I started off doing shows for History Channel on the secrets of Nazi gold, back when History Channel was actually about history. From there, it clicked in that, oh, I'm editing a lot of these kind of documentary type shows, which were the shows I liked to watch. So I just started focusing on that, ultimately leading to True Hollywood Stories and A&E Biography. I loved working on those shows, loved like telling somebody's story, like to tell someone's life story in 42 minutes was a real challenge, and to have it still have those act breaks and natural ups and downs was challenging. And you also learned about, well, how do you actually, because you're, for example, I edited the biography of Donald O'Connor, and the company that was producing the biography was ultimately owned by 20th Century Fox. And Donald O'Connor had done a movie called There's No Business Like Show Business with Marilyn Monroe and Mitzi Gaynor and these big stars. And we got as much footage from that movie as we wanted to for about $500 of licensing fees, screen tests, trailers, outtakes. But of course, it's Donald O'Connor, so you have to use Singing in the Rain, which was not owned by Fox. And we were limited to a very strict 30-second clip, 30-second clip. Couldn't be a total of 30 seconds. It had to be start, play, start, play. And for all that, it was like $8,000. So you had to be you started to think a little bit more, not necessarily less creative, but a different kind of creative. But I enjoy those kind of challenges. Oh, actually, if you can put up the picture of me in the green dress there. Great, talking about A&E Biography. The gentleman I'm pictured here with is named Ben Bulatow, and he was my assistant editor when I was working on Biography. And part of the reason why we're doing this series is to kind of find new ways and reach out to students to make more of a connection, to create more of a culture of mentorship. Because sadly, in Hollywood, we get very compartmentalized, and like the traditional way you would think of as an assistant editor is they are assisting the editor. Well, especially in unscripted world, a lot of times they are just doing data management, getting the media in, making sure the avids are up and running, making sure everything's talking to each other. And you don't get that opportunity to kind of let them cut something and try, because you want to foster, you want the next generation to learn and grow and, you know, be your colleague. So anyway, this gentleman here is Ben, and he was my assistant editor at A&E Biography. It was one of the last times really that I had the opportunity to kind of foster an assistant editor. And I let him cut an entire act of one of my biography shows. I would come in, he'd do all his work, stay late, would cut. I'd come in, give him notes, say, okay, this is not working and here's why. I would place this clip here, this kind of a rough edit here, and see if you can find a better word that would get this message across. But yeah, he was an assistant editor, and I made sure that everyone knew that he cut it. Now flash forward to this shot, you know, number of years later, and he's multiple nominated editor for both Eddies and Emmys. He works on Deadliest Catch. He's also in A's. Terrific human being. So because of people like Ben, I want to have more opportunities to give any kind of advice that you guys might find helpful. I feel like I'm rambling on and off. Am I doing all right, Kylie?
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
So
we've got a lot of questions coming in. So
yeah. So to sum it all up, so I'm off on my career. Editing biographies. That was right around the time that unscripted really took off, like around 2000. And I realized I really liked the shows. Ultimately, the competition reality shows. Like I just finished working on MasterChef. I've done Project Runway. I've done Survivor. I've done Last Comic Standing, RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars. I was invited to join ACE about 5 years ago. That's my husband. I'm very active in the union, the Motion Picture Editors Guild. It's very important to me that we and that's my dog Crypto, who also walked many picket lines with me. You have value as a creative person. These jobs are hard to get, and they're very in demand because they're fun and they're satisfying, but that doesn't mean that we let ourselves be taken advantage of and working extra hours and not putting in for overtime and making sure we have medical coverage. I mean, we should be able to have a work-life balance and still be fulfilled creative. I mean, that's pretty much the goal of everything we want. Oh, that one came out very tiny. So yeah, that is me. That's one of my awesome partners in crime, Mary DeChambers, who's on the board of directors with me. She works on American Ninja Warrior. These are the picture editors that represent the Editors Guild. I'm so honored to be a part of this. Some of the people pictured here, Steve Rifkin, who's in New Zealand right now, editing all of Jim Cameron's Avatar movies. Next to him is Tatiana Reigel, who was nominated for an Oscar for editing I, Tonya. Dodie Dorn, who is the woman with the gray hair sitting in front of me, edited Memento, which is just a fantastic, tremendous piece of editing. So I stay busy talking to people, and hopefully they find value in it. So anyway, that's a panel I spoke on last year for EditFest. Oh, that's something actually for anyone listening. EditFest is normally a in-person, day-long event that American Cinema Editors puts on in August. And because of coronavirus, this year they're going to be doing it online. So that's going to be more of an opportunity for people to tune in and really hear some amazing editors tell stories about whether it's work process or creative choices or collaboration that they have with directors. So I encourage everyone to check that out. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right. You have some really great pictures.
Thank you. That one's at actually, one last thing. This photo here it's a new organization I'm involved with called EIPMA, Entertainment Industry Professional Mentoring Alliance. And it is a coalition of groups like ACE, MPSE, HPA, the Grammy Recording Academy, AVID, about a dozen professional things that are usually it's not the Writers Guild, it's not directors, it's not actors, it's mostly focused in post-production. And we're a coalition of professionals that, again, want to allow people to know that these jobs exist. You may have never heard of them, but you don't have to be like this dynamic, flamboyant personality that thinks, oh, well, I'll never be a director or whatever. Like, there's so many different areas where you can be creatively fulfilled, professionally fulfilled, whether it is, I'm an editor, but I edit unscripted, but other editors do, documentary or do films or do scripted television. So there's, even within each work or job, there's a million different kinds of things. If you're if you're into music, you can be a recording person like Jet Galinda, who works, she actually helps artists record vinyl records, which is amazing. Or whether you're a sound editor or you design the music and the score for film. So there's just a lot of things out there, and I can yammer forever, but I'll stop and find out what you guys want to hear.
That was a great overview. It's hard to summarize such a career in just 10, 15 minutes. But love the pictures, love all your dress choices for the award shows too. Especially the purple one. I'm really into that color.
Oh, thanks.
So one point of clarification, are you from California originally?
I am. I'm actually a 5th generation California. I grew up in Northern California, a town called Fairfield, and I moved down here to Los Angeles to attend Loyola Marymount in '87, and I've pretty much been here ever since. Went home for a couple summers, but LA is my home now.
It's funny, I mentioned this to Molly yesterday. Last week we had another Loyola Marymount graduate who originally went there because they were interested in directing, and now he is at Adobe working on development, and you're an editor. So you guys kind of had started on the same path and very much diverged, but still in the same sort of universe. So it's really interesting to see how different a path can be. So some questions from the chat. Let's see. So somebody asked, they would love to hear information on diversity programs for editors and assistant editors. Are there any diversity initiatives or programs in LA that you recommend, including LGBTQ+?
Absolutely. I mean, specifically the Motion Picture Editors Guild has a diversity program, and then that's like the umbrella for, there is a specific LGBTQ, African American, American Pacific, Latin so they're within the Motion Picture Editors Guild. There are these groups, and they're unfortunately, they're fairly new groups. So this is something that we've really developed maybe over the last 5 years. So they're growing, and there's growing pains, and they're still trying to figure it out. But they will have social events, or they will have panels, or they will have film recommendations. There's I believe on Sunday this month, there's going to be a screening of the movie called Sorry to Bother You, which is a movie about a Black gentleman who gets a job as a telemarketer, and he realizes he does better when he puts on his white voice, and just kind of discussing what all that means. And we are going to have a Q&A afterwards with the editor, who I believe is African American. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that. I haven't been paying as much attention to that as I have recently. So anyway, there's the Motion Picture Editors Guild that certainly does that. I know that American Cinema Editors also has a diversity program. And don't feel that if you're not a member of these organizations, you can't still check them out. If for whatever reason you wouldn't be eligible to attend a screening or something because you're not a member of that organization, they will say, well, but you know what you should check out? Check out the Pan Pacific Film Festival. That's always every spring. Everyone is very willing to share information. So those are two I can think of off the top. I know there's a ton more. So I will, if you still have questions, I'll see if I can, I guess, get my email or contact information out. I'll try and put together a list of other ones.
Great. And to jump off of that, let's talk more about EIPMA. Somebody in the chat was curious how they can get more involved with EIPMA as a new college graduate.
Perfect. So it's EIPMA.org is our website. And again, we're very new. We're only 2 years old. We lit that photo of me. That was our launch that we had the first week of March. And then, of course, everything shut down. We finally got some momentum, but we're figuring it out. So at EIPMA.org, there's a form you can fill out, whether you are, and there you can check a box of like, I'm a high school student, I'm a college student, I'm a recent graduate, I'm a film graduate student, I'm an Army vet that's looking to change careers, or I'm an industry professional and I would, this is my experience. So if there's someone that might be interested, you can put them in touch with me. We're not looking to do like, come to my job and follow me. It's more just like, an email, maybe a phone call, a web chat. It's almost like, the gentleman, Alan, who I waited tables on, like, he just gave me a little bit of information because I was asking a larger question that I may not understand how to get an answer to, and he could point me in the direction to get that answer. And that's pretty much what mentoring is like, you out there may have like, I don't know where to start, but this is what I'm interested in. And then I, as a professional, can say, you know what you should do? Go talk to this person. So yeah, go to EIPMA, and there's a form you can fill out. Please don't get discouraged if you feel like you're not hearing back from us. Like I said, we're still figuring it out. We're still a new organization and dealing with coronavirus outfall and our own careers. We're all volunteers, so.
Yes, and as Linda, our new chair for SMPTE Hollywood, pointed out, SMPTE is a board organization, also very involved.
Yes. Oh, no, shame. I mean, and I think I didn't say it because I could feel myself talking so fast. I'm like, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to get the letters wrong, and I didn't want to say STPEM. So
it's a lot of letters. That's fine. Leave it to me.
So sorry, Linda.
All good. Another recent college grad has a question for you. She has a degree in digital audio production. She loves editing audio and considers herself to be an editor, but she's having a hard time getting employers to notice her. So what is advice for young women trying to break into the industry with a limited network? Where do you even start when you don't know anybody?
You don't know anyone. It's tough. Again, it is. Sometimes it's just a cold call. Like if there's a project that like Dodie Doran, who I mentioned, she was the editor of Memento. That's a little bit of a higher profile movie, and she'll get her name credit, but she's had numerous people like watch that movie and go, wow, this is, because Memento is really considered one of like one of the top 10 edited films because it's so creatively done. And you just go to IMDb or look on Facebook and you like read the credits of something you like, track someone down, find them on IMDb, shoot them an email and say, hi, I'm Susie from Iowa, and I've been working on Pro Tools, and here's my own projects, and I just don't know what to do. And so sometimes it is just that cold call. If they say anything other than, don't bother me, kid, or I'll slam, or a harassment suit, it's okay to keep bugging them. We all went through it. We all get busy. Things get shuffled down in the email stack. We forget about it. We will tell you, stop bothering me. We all get it. So don't ever feel that, oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to bother, we get it. And we wish we could be more responsive immediately and have exactly the answer you're looking for. But we don't always have it. But yeah, I mean, if there's a project you like or admire, like if you're into sound design and you love the sound design of an Avengers movie, just look at the credits, take down some names, look for like the production house, write them an email. They will have better information about because like I don't really have much information of like how would you get involved in digital music. I mean, digital music is a huge thing that I wouldn't even know how to address. But look at the projects that you respond to that you would want to work on and just start kind of cold calling.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think this person isn't in LA currently, and I wasn't either, and I did similar things. There are ways you can reach out. A lot of my reach outs were under the guise of writing articles, interviewing them. So
Absolutely.
Do you have any advice for how to phrase your emails when you're reaching out cold? How best to introduce yourself?
Just, be honest, be polite, be specific. Like if I got an email saying, I'm Joe, I saw you edited this, get me a job. Like, no, it's like, hi, my name's Joseph, and I have watched every season of RuPaul's Drag Race. I just think it's really cool. I saw your name in the credits, that you're an editor. Can you tell me? Can you tell me how you got that job, or how ask a specific question of like or offer to buy me a cup of coffee. Like, I'm going to be in LA for a week. I would love just to meet you for coffee or something. But be polite. Be specific of what your interests are, because again, if you don't know, we sure don't know what you want. So try and be as specific as you can about. You may not know how to get there, but you should at least have an idea of what it is you want answered.
Yes, that definitely helps, especially for people that are busy. And it's funny you mentioned Dodie Dorn. I was also a person that was heavily influenced to get into editing because of Memento. And I had the opportunity to meet her through interviewing, but when I moved to LA, I emailed her, and she was out of the country. But when she came back, I had the opportunity to go and meet her. So it's not just a thing that Molly's saying. It happened to me. People are very generous, and editors are not celebrities.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We are vain as hell. Like if you say, oh, I loved your work. When you put that sound effect in to make that joke and like to feel like you noticed our work, because editing. I mean, part of it is you're trying to make it look invisible. You shouldn't be paying attention, but you should feel something. And if we did, let us know, because we get a huge charge out of that.
Yeah. So speaking of some influences, another question from a viewer: what were some of your greatest influences in either movies or directors that made you want to be an editor?
It's really interesting. I've actually thought about this question, and I remember when when I was 16 and I first thought I wanted to get into the industry, I studied a lot of Hitchcock films, and I was admiring him because he would storyboard everything, and he would shoot 3 frames of film for every one that ended up, and that was like a big bragging point. And then I really started looking at his films, and as I got older, and I realized, like, master storyteller, don't get me wrong, but I hate the editing in his films because he was so married to the storyboard that he didn't actually let how that actually plays in real time. Like if you're watching Psycho, when the guy comes up the staircase and then falls down, there's a lot of really awkward, long, lengthy things that happen that don't really feel organic in motion, that always just bug the crap out of me. So that kind of influenced me initially, but then I changed my mind. I am really influenced by a lot of my fellow editors. Like a lot of my projects, like I remember there's a guy, Scott Morgan, who's a fantastic editor. We would collaborate because a lot of times in unscripted, you're not the only editor on the project. There'll be sometimes, 5 or so editors, and you're just kind of in each other's pockets all the times. And I would love watching whatever Scott worked, and he would inspire me, the way he would do a transition, or he'd use a sound effect to kind of lead you into the next thing. And it does help when you're kind of working on that project, because you can really delve into the nitty gritty and you can see, oh, this is what they did. And as far as like, it's hard sometimes, things just kind of wash over you when you're watching a movie and you just want to enjoy that story. So maybe you're not necessarily paying attention to everything. So I watched a ton of making of DVD behind the scenes. The Lord of the Rings trilogy has a fantastic bit about editing and the ways they would shape scenes or color correct to give a different mood. But that's, it's also very collaborative. So I guess that's my answer.
Good answer. It's good to know that influences can change. You can say,
oh, absolutely.
I used to think that was good, but now I think it kind of sucks.
It's all, it just, you value things for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And, it helps to look at things from a different point of view. I mean, mm-hmm. That's kind of what society's going through right now with like, Gone with the Wind's the greatest film ever. Maybe not.
Yeah, looking at it on a different lens is always interesting.
Yeah,
for sure. So another question from the chat, going back to sort of programs that can help people. You may not know the answer to this one, but the deadline for the ACE internship is at the end of this month.
Yes.
But they're currently in school. Do you think they should apply for the internship even though they don't graduate until September, or wait till next year?
Definitely. I mean, apply, definitely. The worst that can happen is they'll go, wow, you're really terrific. We love to have you. Turns out the timing doesn't work with your school, but you absolutely should apply next year, and we're going to remember you. So, no, it's a free swing. So apply this year. Mm-hmm. If you don't get it, apply next year too.
And is it still true that the ACE intern applicants all get access to lectures?
Yes, excuse me. I believe how it works is that every single person that fills out the application is invited ultimately to a weekend-long lecture series. They will have selected, I believe there's 2 that they select every year, maybe sometimes it's 3, usually it's 2. But anybody that applies is then invited to come for this weekend-long panel series. So that's worth the price of admission. I mean, you do have to come to LA to do it, and might be a little, I don't know what's happening this year with coronavirus. Yeah. It usually happens in December, January. So we get a little time. But yeah.
That's great. And FYI, if anyone is looking at the ACE internship and can't quite afford it, organization I work with, Blue Collar Post Collective, is helping people pay for it. So email me and I can connect you. I'll put
That's great. I love Blue Collar Post. They're fantastic.
Yay. Yeah. We try to help people that can't pay for that. I think it's a $100 fee, and right now it's a little.
That sounds right.
Difficult.
Yeah.
So moving on.
Income. What is that?
Right. So another question from a viewer: as someone with TV experience and editing experience, but not TV editing experience, how can they prove to editors like you that they're ready to make that jump? And what do you look for in aspiring editors?
I always say it's this horrible catch-22 of like an editor demo reel, because what an editor demo reel shows me is how do you edit a demo reel. I believe a lot of it is demeanor in how you present yourself. I'm able to, like, I've had people that have worked in promos in the past, and they're not embarrassed, but they don't really put that at the forefront of their resume. But I'm like, but you can tell a story in 26 seconds. That's a skill I can use. If editing is storytelling, so anything you can do to prove to me that you can tell a story, whether it is a sentimental video for a memorial service, and you were able to show like a progression and cue that music up to really land with that last picture. Anything that shows to me that you know how to make an emotional connection in what a viewer is, or a viewer would experience. What I tend to look askance at, me personally, when I've looked at editor reviews, is something that looks cool, because I can tell it's just a really fancy shot. There's a lot of special effects that are built into it, but that's not what you did. What you did is, how did you choose these shots and present them to me? As, again, with the music, in the sequence, what followed what are you building up to? What are your transitions? So that's what I'm looking for, is because ultimately, yes, it's great if you can use Sapphire and Boris and all these really cool plugins, and that's important. But are you using those tools to just dazzle me with stuff, or are you doing it in a creative way that makes me feel something?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So you're primarily in unscripted, and
Yes.
I think another question that might be useful for clarifying on that question, if somebody has some editing experience, but it's not at the level of RuPaul's Drag Race, or it's on indie films or even features, when they move over into unscripted and they're talking to you about working in it, is it realistic that they would then be an editor alongside you, or are you going to be hiring them as an assistant?
Well, in fairness, I don't do the hiring. I'm not at a level where I do the hiring. I'm beholden to the producers. So that's another bit of advice too. It's great to know to get to know editors and learn tips and tricks, but it's the showrunners, the post supervisors, and the producers. If you can develop a good relationship with the producer, that is akin to, in the film world, where an editor and a director have a good relationship. They will bring you along because they want to work with you. The question was, so yeah, I personally am not responsible for hiring. I'll give recommendations, and a lot of that is based on, sometimes it's just based on, do I want to spend 12 hours a day working next door to you? There's a lot of people that want these jobs, and there's a lot of talented people, and I certainly would rather work with somebody who I want to go to lunch with than someone who I'm like, oh, they're throwing a temper tantrum because the network threw out their grand opus montage at the end of Act 2. So, be an interesting person. I mean, I'm big about kindness and niceness and fairness, but it's important to be interesting. Like when you go to, if you get the opportunity to go to mixers, or you meet somebody that could maybe hire you later on, it's not necessarily enough to say, I really want this, I know I can do this. You've also got to be memorable to them, because they may not have a job right now. So have something else to talk about. Like, what are your hobbies? Like, I love escape rooms. I'm dying because I can't go on any escape rooms right now. Everything's closed. I'm a huge Halloween fan, as you might tell by some of my decor around me. Have interests that you can talk to people about other than their job or your job, because you need to develop these relationships beyond just, I can do this job. I've gone very long-winded in answering that question, but it's important. I always tell people, one tip, my business card, I've seen all kinds of fancy, very clever business cards, but mine is a really nice graphic design on the front, but it's blank on the back, and it's blank, and it's paper you can write on. Because if you're at a cocktail party or a mixer, or you've gone to a panel, and you can say, you should really check out this book. Let me write that down for you. And now you've handed them some information. Now you've kind of given them a reason to keep your card beyond just, I met you at a thing, because I'll forget who you are just based on your card. But if I have that bit of personality, I'll remember you more, and I'll be more likely to go, oh yeah, my gosh, we're doing this, we're starting this new web show. You know, it's not a job I can do, but I remember there was that kid I met at, or that guy I met at a panel. He was really into dog training, and he might be great for this. So
Yeah, that's what happened.
Don't be afraid to let who you are be a part of who you present.
Great way to put it. Another viewer is curious about your first union show. Do you remember what it is and how that experience compared to working on non-union projects?
Absolutely, fabulous, great question. My first union project was Project Runway. I had already been in the industry for about 10, 15 years. And because unscripted grew up so quickly, the union didn't really know what to do with unscripted. And so unfortunately, a lot of toeholds got made by unscripted shows that they're very resistant to joining the union. But Project Runway, fortunately, because they film also on a stage, they had to have union crew members for that, and then that just kind of rolled over to cover post. But it certainly was an anomaly when I did it in 2010. And it was amazing because they were like, 7 o'clock, you got to go home. Or if they needed you to stay, it was like, okay, let me check and make sure we can cover you. It took a couple of years of me then getting more and more union work for me to trust that I could have a continuous career in unscripted, because the big carrot is health insurance. I was paying for my own health insurance. I was paying, it was myself and my husband, and basic coverage were relatively healthy, but it was $800 a month. And then to get into the union and get the union health insurance, which is, I had to pay $150 every 6 months for him, and that's it. It's $5 copay every doctor visit. It's great insurance. It's a real incentive to find union work. And second part of my answer, create union work. So while I had been in the union, I was still taking a lot of non-union jobs, and you're able to do that with the Editors Guild. And I was working on a show called Swamp People, and we were working ridiculous hours. It was non-union. I worked like a 20-hour shift one time just because reasons. And I started hearing some little comments from coworkers and various people like, we should flip this to be union. There's no reason this show, this is a show that is on a network, it's on the History Channel, that advertisers buy air commercial time for. It is a valuable commodity, just like Breaking Bad or West Wing or Friends. And there's zero reason why the people working to create this content that people are willing to pay for shouldn't be covered and protected and have, holidays, sick pay, pension. There's no reason for it. We all do the same thing. It's like separate but equal, but not. So we cut to the chase. We flipped the show. We turned the show into a union show, and we set a precedent. We were the first post-led team to flip a show, and we've had probably 100 shows flip since we did that in 2013. And it was scary. It took 4 days. We walked a picket line. We were friends with these producers, or friendly, but when it comes to it, they're not going to pay for my retirement. They're not going to pay for my old age care home. I wish that they could have their own union, but it was a classification that they don't have a representation. So Swamp People, well, while Project Runway was my first union project, Swamp People is the one that I always will remember, because that led a whole cycle.
That's hugely important. I think a lot of people that are newer, particularly me, I wasn't from a place where there was really a lot of work that would be union. You don't understand maybe when you're younger how important that is. And so you're on the board, so clearly you believe in this collective power.
And I mean, it is one of my biggest frustrations that, like, I'm working on MasterChef. MasterChef is union. I have worked on Top Chef. Top Chef is not union. Survivor, I was working on when it flipped, and it's now union. Amazing Race is not union. So like, there's all these shows that are like, you would think of as kind of like parallel, identical shows, but yet some are and some are not. And literally the only thing stopping them from becoming union is people standing up and asking for a union contract. Like Shaws of Sunset is a union show. Kardashians is not. Real Housewives is not. Married to Medicine, same network, is. And it's because the editors asked for it. And so that is something I strongly, strongly encourage anyone listening to really think about. Because like, I have a pension that, you know, if I were to retire tomorrow, I will collect when I turn 65. You know, I mean, our union isn't perfect. There's a lot of flaws with it, don't get me wrong. And I'm trying to make it better and better for all my colleagues, but it's better than not having anything.
Yeah. And one more point on the union, since there's a lot of people that are young on the call and looking for their first foot in the door, I know that it's common for when shows go on strike for the companies to try to get non-union people to come in. So how do they deal with those situations and react to that?
It's hard, and I absolutely get it. It's like if you are let's say you're a assistant editor and your editor goes on strike and your boss says, okay, fine, here's your chance. We're gonna jack your salary up. You're gonna, you know, get a pay grade or a title bump. That is really tempting. It is, but don't kid yourself. If you were to take that in that specific situation, the union knows, and the union will not forget, and neither will the union brother and sisters. It is not a good long-term career move, and I don't say that as a threat at all. I'm just saying that's what happens, because it is the only thing that keeps the union strong is us holding together, and if anyone goes against that, it's noticed. So if you're ever in that situation, and I get it, and it's scary, I strongly encourage you just to pick up a picket sign, because they will also remember that you stayed on the picket line. And that's a great opportunity to kind of chat with other people walking the picket line, and, you know, here's a chance to kind of mentor that and get information that maybe you didn't, you know, couldn't before because you were constantly grouping dailies or whatever. It's a very narrow example of that kind of pressure, because there are tons of shades of that throughout the industry, of being pressure like, oh, could you just stay late? Could you just, I'll buy you pizza. Could you just not, let's not tell them you're coming into work Saturday. That stuff is constant, and it's insidious, and it is very hard to say no to. And none of us are perfect, and we've all had our ways that we've kind of justified, but it's the sooner you can be comfortable saying, you know, I really would not feel comfortable doing that. Because if they're going to fire you for that, that's not necessarily a company you want to work for anyway. But it's hard. It's a very competitive thing. It's hard to like walk away from a job because that somebody's offering you. All I can do is say that there are a lot of people out there that are on your side, will support you and help you through it if they can. But it is a scary thing. Walking a picket line is one of the scariest things I've ever done, because I didn't know if I would have a career afterwards. I'm very vocal about the union. I'm often worried that people won't hire me because they think that I'm a rabble rouser or whatever. And it's possible that I have lost jobs because of that, but I've gotten other ones, so I don't know the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, do you really want to work with them anyway?
Yeah.
So we've got time for a couple more questions, and I did want to ask this one from a viewer about your process as an editor. When you get your dailies in unscripted, what's your process for going through and selecting what you're going to use? He said, how do you go about choosing the best takes? Do you rely on notes, or do you review each and every take? And I know in unscripted things might be different. So what is your process?
Well, for example, for MasterChef, there were 2 of us working on an episode. It'd be 6 acts, and we have a story producer who, let me back up a little bit more. They film, they're in MasterChef Kitchen, they film a challenge. There are producers there taking notes, what actually happened. The tapes come back to the office, the assistant editors bring them in, the story producer or loggers kind of tag team, and they look at the story notes of like, okay, this is where we're going. This person thinks they're amazing, they have a huge failure, but they pull it off and they win. That's where we're going. So they will kind of build a story, a string out for me with just that. And then they give that to me. They give me a nice little manageable, maybe a 15-minute string out of what's ultimately going to be maybe a 7 or 8 minute act. And I will watch that down and go, okay, this is what they're going for. Then I will go and watch the raw myself. And it's really tricky for MasterChef in particular, because there's 9 cameras and 4 judges and 10 contestants, and that's a lot of mics that you're kind of listening to. And all of a sudden you might be working this one section, you hear, who's that saying that? And then you can mute everything and go, oh, that's a really cool B storyline, because I think that is going to pay off later because they're going to get eliminated next episode. So you're always kind of looking at the big picture of the season and trying to find moments that don't just go, our challenge today is to bake a cake. I've never made a cake. Boy, this sucks. Yay, the judges liked it. You want to find the moments of like, I'm really scared. I've never made a cake other than like a Duncan Hines mix for my kid's birthday. So what am I doing here? I mean, this, so that then you start digging to get things that are less generic and more character driven. And if you can, and it's a process of building layers of, yes, I want this to feel like a process. Because like, again, if you're baking a cake, you might have this amazing reaction shot, but the cake's done and you need it for when they first start. So you've got to either go, well, is there another camera angle where I could cheat that? How far can I push in on them? You have to figure out, how can I manipulate this footage, or am I going to be able to, or like, nope, can't do it. So if I really want to use this, is there something later down the road I can set it up? So again, roundabout way of answering, we're given guideposts, and it's a team effort, and we're constantly spitballing with each other and checking in with the other shows of knowing what we have to set up or pay off. Like, there's an executive producer or a showrunner who watches everything. We may only be in our one act for our episode, and let alone be able to see the whole thing. So the supervising producer will be constantly like, remember, this person goes home next episode, so let's use every little nugget we got of this person because they're going to be a fan favorite. They love this character. It is just a constant process. It'll take me maybe a week to build an act, and you're very detail oriented, and then you get to Friday and you watch the whole thing and go, ooh, I used like 7 reaction shots of the same person and I never see this other one. Let me cycle a few of those out. So it's just this constant refining, balancing, making sure everyone feels represented, that every story gets told. So it is just this constant process of constantly refining it.
I always enjoyed working in unscripted, so that whole process sounds really fun to me.
I won't lie, I really like working on MasterChef because the challenge is only an hour, and so that's a luxury that I can, because it's only an hour, I can take the 5 or 6 hours to watch the whole thing to really go, what's here. For Project Runway, sometimes it was a 3-day challenge. I edited Naked and Afraid, which is more of what I call a docu-follow type show. That could be 21 days. So those I don't have the luxury. There's whole storylines you have to drop, but make it feel emotionally true.
Awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, so I have a couple more questions. One is,
I'll try and be short.
was there a challenging moment or hurdle in your career that you had, and how did you overcome it?
There's been many. I think I'll tell you when my career became better was when I finally was comfortable setting boundaries and saying no. I went through I was let go from a show, and it was a very embarrassing and hurtful experience, and so I was just very, in a very sensitive place. And then I got the call to interview for another potential show, and because I thought I was going to be off for a while, I was going to go visit my family up north, and they wanted me to come in on they wanted me to start on Thursday, but that meant I wouldn't be able to go see my family. And I said, I really hate to lose that on this job, but can I just start Monday? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. And that show ended up being Beyond Scared Straight, which was one of the shows I got nominated for an Emmy Award. I met some of the most amazing editors I've ever known, Maura Corey, Mark Andrew, Rob Gerbeau, Paul Coyne. They're tremendous, tremendous creative forces. And so I learned that it's okay to not have to feel you have to say yes to everything. It's okay if you really can't stay late, or you really don't feel that great about how this job is shaking out. It's okay to say no. The next thing will come along, and it is much better to take, it's kind of relationship advice too. It is much better to be happy and alone than together with someone you're miserable with. So.
Don't I know that? Excellent. And to wrap this up, one question which can be a little difficult. What is one piece of advice that you'd give to newcomers that they can apply to their lives today?
I think it goes back to be authentic to who you are, because that makes me interested in you and want to remember you. And I mean, we all have very busy lives and very full, demanding jobs. So I regrettably do not have time to really get to know all my colleagues. So if you are able to do something that stands out, that makes me want to, like, hey, let's go grab lunch, or you should, I've got a +1 for this mixer, you want to come, or to say, like, you say you want to edit. Well, I've got this little product placement thing I got to get in the show. You want to take a crack at it? Be interesting, but also, and this is more important. Express your desires. Too many people wait to be asked, and you need to let your editors or the people that have the jobs that you want, without being backstabby about it. You need to let them know that you want that job, because they're the best people to help you learn how to get that job. But if they don't know, they're not going to take the initiative. I like to feel I'm proactive, and I don't do like a 10th of the job I know I could do in trying to draw things out. But again, it's not my responsibility. It's your responsibility to let people know, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go?
Awesome. That's great advice to end on. And it can be really hard to put into practice, but practice makes perfect.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. And there's again, another great thing about the union, we're working more on, let me give a plug to a gentleman, Zach Arnold, has a podcast called Optimize Yourself. He's a fantastic editor, and he's got well over 100 podcasts about editing, and whether it's how you care for yourself by getting a standing desk or taking a break or whatever. But if you dig, you'll certainly find episodes that he specifically has done about how to assert yourself in a career where we're all kind of introverts. So there's tons of podcasts out there, like this, or The Rough Cut by Matt Fury for Avid. He talks to a lot of great editors who might have projects in the news. Just listen to stuff like this, and you'll find that little nugget of wisdom, and maybe that's the key that unlocks that door you've been trying to get through.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you so much. Great. My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. And like I said, if people have other questions, I guess they can email you and you can forward them to me. I'll try to get to them. I just got a new puppy, so I'm a little busy.
Are you on Twitter by chance?
I am. I'm Molly Shock at Twitter, whatever. I suck at Twitter, but I do check it out. You can find me there, but
Okay.
forgive me if I don't get back to you right away, because again, I suck at it.
Awesome. Well, we're past the 1 o'clock hour, so I'm just going to wrap up with a couple quick announcements here. I'm going to share my screen again. So again, repeating, this is hosted by SMPTE Hollywood, and we're part of SMPTE, which is a global organization, and we've got 50% discounts on virtual courses, webcasts, free access that you don't normally get, and students can join free and renew for $15. And next week, I'll be back Thursday at noon with another of these sessions. I'm going to be talking to my colleague, Regine Nomalos-Dixon. He's a cloud engineer at Netflix in the creative systems team, which helps to support editors and artists and stuff with everything that has to do with networking and all kinds of stuff like that. He's got a really cool background, so that should be a great discussion too. So I hope one of the big takeaways from this for everyone is that we're out there, we're doing the work, we're trying to make it better for you, and we're going to be resources. So you're not out there alone. And if you hear horror stories or difficulties, or you face a lot of challenges, there are people you can reach out to, and there are people that have been through that. So hopefully I'll see you all next week. And thank you again, Molly.
My pleasure.